Hello chess lovers, Suren here, and in this video I want to share with you a famous attacking game which 14-year-old Robert James Fischer played against American chess master James Sherwin. The game was played in 1957 at New Jersey Open. This is a game which Fischer would later treasure in his book My 60 Memorable Games. In this game Fischer had white pieces and he opened up with e4. Sherwin responded with Sicilian defense, knight f3 e6, d3, knight c6, g3. Fischer is choosing his favorite King's Indian attack, which is like reversed King's Indian defense. Knight f6, bishop g2, bishop e7, both players castled kingside, knight bd2, rook b8. In his book My 60 Memorable Games, Fischer writes, Sherwin slid the rook here with his pinky as if to emphasize the cunning of his mysterious move. But this rook b8 is actually a standard move in typical positions with which black wants to support the advance of the b pawn. Rook e1 d6, c3 b6. After rook b8, b6 looks very strange and passive. b5 is a move which just asks itself to be played, trying to create an attack on the queen side, but instead we see b6, d4, queen c7. As Fischer writes, this leads to trouble. Instead of playing queen c7, it was better to open the c file by going for an exchange on d4 and then play d5. If e5, then knight d7. This line is suggested by Fischer himself, but instead of playing c takes d4, we see queen c7. e5 by Fischer and knight d5. Well, this is an awkward square for the knight. Instead, it was better to go for d takes e5 and move back the knight on d7 and prepare the fianchetto of the queenside bishop. But instead we see knight d5, and the problem with this move is that by playing c4, white could harass black knight further. If knight b4, then white can capture on d6 and then can play knight e4. The threat is knight takes d6 followed by bishop f4. Also white can corner this black knight on a6, and all this looks very unpleasant for black. But Fischer didn't use his chance, and to knight d5 answered with e takes d6, bishop takes d6, knight e4, and c4. With this move black is relieving the tension in the board, and also in some cases we can say that this is restricting the movement of the light squared bishop. Instead, putting the bishop on a6 is a better idea. But instead, after knight e4 we see c4. Here we have knight takes d6, queen takes d6, knight g5. We have a very nice attacking position for white knight, and already white queen is ready to join the attack. If h6, then white can put his knight on e4, and actually at this point playing h6 is very important, otherwise the knight on g5 is becoming a menace for black. Instead we see knight ce7 and queen c2 with a direct mating threat. Now if g6, then white can play knight e4. If queen d7, then bishop h6, white's position looks very strong. Or if queen c7, then you can step into this beautiful knight f6 check followed by bishop f4. This is an idea on which Fischer will rely when organizing his attack. In our game, black neutralized the mating threat with knight g6 and h4. h5 is the threat. If h6, then anyways white can play h5. Here black played knight f6, stopping the h-pawn, but this allowed Fischer to pull out a brilliant combination. And as we have reached the critical position, you can pause the video and try to find white's next move. Ready? In this position, the 14-year-old rising star shattered opponent's position with knight takes h7 thunderbolt. How do you like this move, guys? The vulnerability of this diagonal makes the sacrifice possible. If king takes h7, then as your knight gets pinned, white can play bishop f4. That's why to knight takes h7, black recaptured with that knight. And here we go, h5. Now if knight e7, then bishop f4 is coming. That's why black played knight h4. He decided to give back the knight at the cost of weakening white's kingside. But Fischer first played bishop f4, and only after queen d8 accepted the piece sacrifice, g takes h4. By the way, you have to be careful. Bishop takes b8 is not good because black has this knight takes g2 move, and then bishop b7 can follow, followed by queen takes b8, and it's black who is winning. That's why after queen d8 Fischer captured on h4. Rook b7, another cunning move by Sherwin. He's offering the rook, but capturing it is not good. In this position, this light squared bishop is of course stronger than that poor rook. Suddenly black's light squared bishop can become a menace for white. That's why after rook b7 Fischer proceeded with his attack h6. What is interesting, for 10 moves the rook will stand hanging on b7 and Fischer won't pay attention to it. Now if you play g6, then this time h5 can follow. That's why Sherwin captured on h4 and we have h takes g7. King takes g7. This is a suicidal move after which black's position goes down quickly. Instead it was better to play rook d8. If bishop g3 then queen h5, if rook e4 then queen g6, black can still prolong his resistance. But instead after h takes g7 we see king takes g7 and rook e4. The threat is bishop e5 check, winning the queen. That's why black moved away his queen from the dangerous fourth rank, and rook e3. All the time Fischer is finding ways of activating his rook. f5, rook h3, queen e8, bishop e5 check. Now if king g8, then rook g3 is coming, followed by rook g7 checkmate. That's why black covered his king, and queen d2. The strongest piece is also joining the party. King f7, queen g5, queen e7, neutralizing the threat, but it's all over. Queen takes f6 was met with rook h7 check. King e8, queen takes f6, rook takes h7. Well, if rook takes f6, then finally at this point white can capture on b7. That's why black played rook takes h7 and immediately resigned once bishop c6 check appeared on the board. Now if bishop d7, then queen takes e6 check is coming, followed by queen d6. White is a rook up, but what is more dangerous for black, black king is already in a mating net. That's why after this bishop c6 check, James Sherwin capitulated. This was a very impressive attack by Fischer, and what is interesting, that same year Fischer would celebrate another very brilliant victory against James Sherwin, which we will cover in one of my upcoming videos. In the end, a chess puzzle for you where the task is to find the mating line for white. There is a checkmate in 6 moves and I will wait for your answer in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Here are more suggestions for you. Feel free to check them out as well. I will see you in my next video. Take care.